It's time for another travel journal. My freaking amazing husband gifted me for my birthday with a trip to Berlin. And this is what the journal is looking like just before I travel. I bound it using pamphlet stitch. It's so easy. Just get a bunch of paper, fold it in half, poke 3 holes, and sew it together. Doesn't really matter how you sew it together. You just got to sew it together. I also wanted to make it a little bit fancy, and so I threaded the outside corner. I just poked in a bunch of holes, and I used that gorgeous, gorgeous blue to do that. I don't know what stitch that is. I'm just playing around, really. So the paper is a mixture of Henna Müller watercolor, Henna Müller mixed media paper, some vintage Berlin stuff, and some magazines. I ended up really not enjoying the cover. I love old maps. This is a vintage map. Oh, actually it's not vintage. I think it's from the 60s. And so I took this sheet that I had lying around from one of my Midori journals and I lettered on it. Now this sheet of paper, I don't know what it's made out of. I'm pretty sure it's made out of heaven, because with my brush pen, which is Kuretake, it's like butter. It is the best thing I've ever experienced when it comes to writing and journaling, obviously. So I'm redoing that. I took the stickers off. I actually bought bigger stickers, but for some reason it comes in packs with half of the alphabet only. Was not a fan of that. Trying to decide if I want to keep it like that or if I want to cut around it. Cutting around lettering is my go-to. I do regret cutting it out though. I should have left it as something whole. I don't know. But it on the plus side, it is kind of falling apart. So it's probably going to have to go off anyway. But I will share that in another video. Speaking of other videos, this is part 1 in a series. A series all about the travel journal. I'm not sure about how this paper is going to show up with background. I'm not sure if I can use my regular glue or if I have to be specific. And so I'm just testing it out over here. we're all good. Back to the series. So as the world opens up a bit more, as we become vaccinated, and as things allow for more adventure, I'd like to share some of my travel journals with you. I find travel journals one of the best ways to create. And the other thing is, sometimes when I'm unable to travel, as in the past 2 years, I have become a traveler of my own neighborhood, my own hood. And I've looked at my quote-unquote boring environment and everyday environment with new eyes, and with the same eyes that I would look at a new place or a different place. So if you're unable to travel around, you can totally do a travel journal for your hometown, for your hood, even for your own house. I'm lucky to be going to Berlin with one of my friends who is another artist, Rachel. That's the Rachel on the cover. And so we bound our journals together over a long day, very relaxed, lots of chats. Didn't film that. But I thought, since my journal's done, I'm happy with how it's prepared. And because I know that I want to use watercolours, I'll gesso it. And this video, I'm aware, is going in and out and in and out. I hope you're still able to take something from it. You don't need to gesso your pages. You don't need to prepare them at all. Sometimes the pages look even more beautiful when they're crinkled. But I really do like the way watercolor looks on white gesso, dried white gesso. And in between waiting for the gesso pages to dry, I'm putting together my travel kit. I want to get a little bit fancy this time, just because I haven't gone in so well. Usually I keep things quite minimal. That is the pouch that I'm using. It's a Delphonics. I'm pretty sure it is the large size, but I can't remember. What I do remember is how expensive it was. Unlike these guys. Cheap, clear plastic envelopes. Those are for ephemera. Ephemera. Oh yeah. I have a bunch of vintage Berlin photos. I've got a bunch of Berlin photos from the 60s. I have these glorious sheets of kind of transparency covers from the books about Berlin that are just wonderful to write on. So I'm including them too. And more paper. These are vintage sheets from an old Berlin travel guide, and they have maps on, which is my ultimate favorite. I'm also including bits from when I bound that journal and anything that didn't make it into the final journal. Something that I'm often asked when people are binding their own journals is how many pages to bind. That, my friend, is forever the question. I think you kind of just have to go for it, and you have to just give up on ever trying to create and bind a journal with the perfect amount of pages. It doesn't exist. But know that if you create a journal that is too small, you can always add pieces in. And I did with this journal. You can add them in with washi tape at a later stage. And you can add in pieces that you collected on your trip. You can also tape pages out. It's adaptable. So here's my kit. I love these label pieces. I love those scissors, tiny scissors. I want to do a lot of drawing, and so I'm taking that T-square, I think. I have my standard black pens for drawing. I like to draw in black. Also have a Payne's Grey pencil and a bright blue one. I've got a black wing pencil because it's my all-time favorite. It's gorgeous and feels like butter on the paper. Washi tape, 2 washi tapes just to add a bit of color. That gouache, which I ended up leaving out an eraser for the pencil. my trusty Tombow tape runner. And you know what? I refuse to be an idiot, and so I'm bringing a refill. I put in a lot of ephemera into my journals. So these are the pens that I usually take with. These are ballpoint pens. But this time I thought, you know what? I'm going to try these microns. So these microns are pens that I use in South Africa a lot. And the glorious thing about them is that they are waterproof. These are my pencils. And my trusty Kuretake brush pen. And these are my new pens. They are waterproof, as I said, so they're going to do well with watercolor, which is what I really want to explore here. And I have these marvelous water brushes, which if you don't know about them yet, which Rachel did not, they're going to change your life. They make it so easy when you're traveling. And even when I'm not traveling, I sometimes like to use it just because they are no fuss and you don't have to clean it. So I want to take 2 different sizes. I'm going to take those 2. I just have an eclectic collection of them. Some from the local art store here. Some, I just found them all over the place. I can't give you, I think they're all fine as long as they've got that water cartridge. I'm including my nail polish in my supplies because it makes me happy. I'm not going to take any of that, but I'm going to take a tripod. I didn't actually end up taking this one, the Joby Gorilla Pod. I took my Manfrotto, which is hard, and it doesn't wrap around anything, which this one does. I've just found I've never had a reason to wrap around anything. 2 extra batteries, so that means I'm taking 3 with, because I'm vlogging it. What up? And I'm taking 2 of my watercolor tins. I'm taking this new one with new colors in, including the Keely Grey Tartan Buff and Hot Pink by Mirror Watercolors, which are homemade, and my trusty one, which I have, essentially abused completely. So that's my kit, that's what I'm taking with me, and that's how I've prepared. Always recommend keeping things smaller rather than bigger because you get to improvise, and that's where exciting creativity happens.